Today's Monday. Did we start?
It's not Monday.
It's never Monday.
Oh, yeah, it's Tuesday.
In the history of the Level 1 news, it's never been Monday.
You're right.
Monday's too busy for things like news.
Today is Tuesday, September 4th.
September the 4th be with you.
Happy after Labor Day if you're from the USA.
If you're wearing white, you're trash.
Oh, I am wearing white. But it's not technically after Labor Day yet.
Well, we've got a triumvirate of FCC stories this week, none of which will surprise anyone.
In fact, you could probably just skip this whole news segment.
There were a couple. Let me summarize this story for you. There were a couple of guys that tried to make a big deal out of Ajit Pai surrendering, but in the end, they didn't care either. Yeah,
basically, the FCC says that it doesn't have the power to punish the Verizon over the firefighter thing.
Remember, that's the realm of the FTC, and the FTC's like, "What are you saying?"
So they just washed their hands of it. They're like, we can't. That's not our problem anymore. And some senators are mad, but no one's going to do anything about it.
It's not our job to figure out how stuff works and tell you guys.
I'm gonna struggle focusing this week because every time I look at the preview monitor, I can just see this terrifying Patrick face in the background.
We could cover it up if you want.
Oh, that's fine.
There you go.
There you go.
Woo! The RTX launch is imminent. Woo!
So yeah. And they're not going to be responsible for that. Now, when they are responsible for wrongdoing, as we figured out with Ajit Pai just bending over backwards for Sinclair, guess who gets to decide whether or not they did anything wrong? The FCC.
There was an investigation in the FCC to determine if the FCC did anything wrong. Shocker. Nope, the FCC didn't do anything wrong.
The FCC determined that the FCC did nothing wrong.
There was some pretty good evidence against him. Really suspicious timings, but they said, no, it's fine. Now, ultimately, the merger didn't happen, so I guess maybe if it had, they would have tried a little harder, but I kind of doubt it.
If some other group would have been involved to investigate, maybe, but since the merger didn't happen, no one cares.
And the other follow-up about the FCC is we've had this ongoing dilemma of what constitutes competition. Now, the last time we checked in with this, it was 2 or was it 3?
It was 2.
So if you had 2 ISPs in an area, that was considered competitive. And anybody with, an IQ in the triple digits or above 70 looked at that and was like, really? 2 is competition? Well, you're going to love this one.
1 is competition. Remember, we reported on that, but the U.S. Court of Appeals said that the FCC can actually define a single ISP area as competitive because theoretically another ISP could move in. But the reality is that no, another ISP can't move in. Look at how tooth and nail Atlanta, Louisville, Kansas City, etc. has fought against Google moving fiber service into their area. So yeah, and that's Google. Google has a war chest of billions of dollars and they can't move in stuff. So there's not a lot of news this week. So
the brass tacks there is a half mile. You have to have a competitor within a half mile of your service radius. And so the thinking is
just one.
If these smaller ISPs just worked a little harder and they could move into that area and everything would be fine. So
how many houses, if you're on the house hunt, you've looked at a lot of houses. I would wager that 98% of the houses that you've looked at are within a half a mile of some type of service.
Probably, yeah. There's one where the price just dropped. And it's perfect. It's the perfect house. It's the house I've always dreamed of. But there's no
internet.
And they're not interested in running any more internet.
That has become like a meme where now that's a word. You've been rhymed out of a house when there's no internet
there's exactly
service.
One person using that word, and it's you.
Me. But it's gonna catch on.
You're trying to make it
just
a thing.
Just like fetch is gonna happen for Gretchen.
Well, we talked about the DEF CON hackers and voting machines and all that nonsense last week, and this is a very convoluted story. Even after reading it, it's kind of like,
do I understand what happened?
I feel like I think what it boils down to is the Justice Department wants to guarantee that this is always a federal case, essentially.
Uh-huh.
So that's why. But they're saying they might not be able to prosecute voting machine hacking because of the wording of the law. But they've prosecuted Raspberry Pi hacking. The wording of the law says connected to a network, and voting machines aren't connected to networks. So they're like, well, we need to refine the law.
It was unauthorized computer access, and they've definitely prosecuted things like you know, unauthorized access to like school computers and stuff like that.
Yeah, there were a couple of cases they cited where there was definitely no network access, and they used these laws. But it seems like if you read between the lines, those could be state cases in some case if they sort of prove that this wasn't federal, and federal always wants to be in charge of these voter cases.
That doesn't smell suspicious at all.
They also pointed out that many of those voting machines are connected via modem so they can fetch the results after it's done, which would count, right?
Krista broke the table.
I was trying to move on. I just had my chair in the wrong spot. Not prepared.
Wow. It's as if you rolled in at the last possible moment and actually 20 minutes late.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, we've talked about IP addresses. Are you defined by your IP address?
My IP address defines me.
Well, not according to the appeal court, which has ruled on, this has been appealed several times, but this has to do with someone who was hosting a file or was accused, it's an Adam Sandler movie. And downloading, not hosting. That's interesting.
This is apparently like an old folks home too, which tells you that like they're going like.
Well, who else watches Adam Sandler movies?
I mean, but the lawyers involved were like, we're going to get that old folks home.
Yeah. So they ruled, as they should, that your IP address cannot be the sole thing that identifies you, especially in these copyright cases.
I think this would not have gone that way had it not been an old folks home, because literally there's a ton of old folks in the old folks home or adult foster care or whatever it was. But if this was like your house, I think the judge probably would have done it, probably would have gone a different way. But there's literally dozens of people that this could have been, which is not reasonable.
Maybe, but I think they do still consider that when it comes to like swatting people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a weird ruling. Of course, that's way before court ever gets involved.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not like they pretty much just do what they want. Well, how about on the topic of great justice? Justice has finally been served, and the final offender in one of the greatest crimes, was it 2016 or 2017?
2016.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
It was Jennifer Lawrence's nudes.
It wasn't just hers, though. There was lots of other people.
How would you feel? They mentioned some of the other girls that were in this. How would you feel if you were one of those girls and you don't even get the headline?
I think that was the way it was from the start, though. Like, all they ever talked about was Jennifer Lawrence's nudes.
There was something. There was a meme name for this.
The fappening.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it, yeah.
I couldn't remember.
Which is terrible, but also, I mean, the creativity of people in 4chan is just never ending.
Hilarious. So there were 4 people involved. 3 have already been sentenced, and this was the last guy. He got 8 months.
That meme wouldn't have even made sense if it wasn't for M. Night Shyamalan making a movie that no one understood.
I mean, that still could have been a fine meme. I'd say more people.
A 1960s art movement.
More people know about the leaked nudes than they do that movie.
Oh yeah.
So maybe I bet he got like some extra views on his movie that month.
Thinking it was part of
what is this all about? Is Jennifer Lawrence in this?
How crazy would it have been if M. Night Shyamalan put those hackers up to that in the first place? Like that would have been the case of the century.
That would have been the ultimate Shyamalan twist.
What if he was involved? Wow. Yeah. Is he still making movies?
It's a piece of performance art, similar to a happening.
Maybe. What if those girls were also involved?
We are on fire today.
Well, we've talked about there was the child porn iPhone case where they were compelled to give up their passcode.
I think that guy's still in jail in Florida.
Held in contempt. And then there was another one that was similar to that. And was there, I think there might have been a Facebook one in the U.S. But anyway, in the U.S., I think with Facebook, you probably aren't required to give it up. But now in the U.K., with some of these new online laws, you got to give up that Facebook password.
See, I read this and I don't understand it because that is a terrible hill to die on. Because you know the police can just call Facebook and say, "Hey, we need into this account," and it'll happen.
Well, I think he's dying on that hill because there's some pretty obvious evidence on Facebook that he killed this girl, or at least lured her into this location
and knew her. And
yeah. Well, they know he knew her because he worked with the family somehow. But anyway, they suspect this guy of killing this girl. I guess this is a Lucy McHugh. It's a famous case in the UK. I hadn't heard of it before. Had you?
No.
But he claims he's not giving them his Facebook data because there's evidence of cannabis use on it. Which, aren't you kind of admitting cannabis use?
Just by saying it, yeah. It's like, okay.
So they don't have the Fifth Amendment, and I don't know. It's sad, but again, this is one of those situations where I bet that guy that didn't give up his Apple password had child porn on the phone, and I bet this guy's the killer. So it really hurts the freedom movement.
Well, the encryption on the phone, that might actually protect the data, but your Facebook password doesn't protect diddly squat.
Yeah,
maybe he doesn't realize that.
Now, when I say to you, if you want to show pride in homosexuality, what is the best thing that you could do in order to show that pride? And the answer is always going to be the same thing. Objectively, this is the best way to do it. Buy Apple products, right?
I wonder where you were going with that.
That's how you do that. Well, in Russia, it's not so easy.
Apple has blocked it. It's just the watch face. It's literally just a rainbow watch face.
Now you can't get this banned either.
Oh, okay.
See the special?
Yeah, so it's a continuous loop.
It matches up.
But you can't get that in Russia because
cannot. It is blocked in the OS in Russia. You cannot use the gay pride watch face.
They put negative space between the bands of color. Does that mean something different, or you could argue with a Russian official if you didn't want to, if you didn't care about dying, that's not actually gay pride. That's just a rainbow stripe.
But it is literally named the gay pride.
Oh.
And I think when you buy the band, a portion of the proceeds go to some advocacy
group
charity thing. This is for sure what this is about.
There's no denying if that's what it's about.
But the Russians aren't having it. They don't like it. They don't want it. And
well, Apple wants to do business in Russia. This is the cost of doing business. It's
just like the Chinese thing, But Apple is, doing this signaling. They're like, oh, we love the LGBTQ. We're doing this for them. Unless the Russians tell us not to, and then you're out in the cold.
In which case, no, we're not doing that.
And see, I see stuff like this, and I have to really wonder about the whole Apple and the FBI encryption, like Apple dying on the... See, this is a really big point in favor of Apple not actually caring about customers' encryption and just wanting that international market.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, not just the international market, but even locally, they get that reputation of Apple's going to go to bat for me. I can trust their encryption.
Apple's not going to go to bat for you if you're gay, apparently.
Well, in America they will, but...
not in Russia.
Not in Russia.
No company will.
Wonder how they feel about that in China.
I guess they're okay with it.
Literally nothing is allowed. No encryption and definitely no rainbows.
I think Tracer from Overwatch, she's gay in the actual comics and stuff, but in Russia they didn't release any of those comics. But I think they were released everywhere else. Wow. They were translated for China and everywhere else. Just Russia that banned it.
It is a weird thing to... Do you really think that it prevents homosexuality, or does that just make people more attracted to it if the state is against it?
Maybe that's why China's given up. China, it's we don't, you can do that. That's fine. Don't make a big spectacle out of it, but don't compare our president to Pooh Bear.
Don't make a spectacle out of it.
No.
Just don't wear the watch band. Keep it in the bedroom. Well, you know what you won't find in the bedroom or anywhere else apparently is the Venezuelan cryptocurrency, the Petro.
We've always made fun of this, but things are getting real dicey in Venezuela. So if anybody's watching from Venezuela, I don't
know how you're watching.
Good luck.
Yeah.
It's really scary stuff. There's in a modern developed world, there is no reason for the people in Venezuela to endure what they're enduring other than just literal insanity.
So the Petro is, according to Maduro, it's out there. They're using it. It's backing the new currency that they brought out. So Reuters did some investigation. They went to Venezuela. There's this one section of the country where apparently all that new oil is, and that it's like a 5-mile radius, and that's the oil that backs the Petro. So they went there, and they were like, "Where's the Petro?" And it's just like a little rundown. They've actually got some pictures of it here.
Reuters.
Look at that single cow.
It's at one oil derrick. This is a fish farm that's been abandoned.
Oh.
And filled with dead fish. think they had a picture of a mule. Maybe it was the video. But anyway, they couldn't find. The people were like, we've never heard of that.
What's cryptocurrency?
You can't spend it here. No one's drilling for oil here. We don't know what's going on. We're starving. Could you give us some food? And there's the biggest crypto exchange in Venezuela doesn't trade it. There are a couple that claim to, but when they tried to actually like open an account and find them, it turns out they probably don't exist. So yeah, interesting that their currency is now based on something that for the most indicators point to just not existing at all.
But they've got oil.
Well, they can't get out of the ground though.
But they need to hire somebody like the United States to come in and give them freedom and equipment.
Give them freedom.
You don't even have to hire them. Just open up that airspace. Well, it's a milestone for Venezuela changing their currency, even if that doesn't exist. And you know what else is a milestone that every automated car company must face? It's a rite of passage. Your first wreck.
It's like, when you're a 16-year-old, you first wreck.
Well, the article couldn't figure out if it was the Apple self-driving car's fault or the other vehicle's fault. It was a Nissan Leaf. Apparently, a Nissan Leaf rear-ended the Apple self-driving car.
What more perfectly encapsulates the hipster nature of 2018? The Nissan Leaf rear-ending the self-driving Apple. So what happened was the Apple was merging, and the Leaf was only traveling at 15 miles an hour. But somehow
something went wrong.
Smashed into it.
And there's quote unquote significant damage.
I was reading about the Waymos where they have their automated testing going on. And people are apparently furious at the Waymos because they're the most conservative drivers on the road. And things like merging and turning left and stuff like that, they're so careful. Like turning left on a blinking yellow, they just won't even try. So you're stuck behind them a lot of the time. I wonder if
and they probably drive slower.
Yeah, they got to get that call center operational so that the guy that's in the call center can help it. It's like, okay, we're going to turn left on yellow. It's fine.
Well, in the world of robotics, we've switched over to robot and AI news. In case you didn't notice,
that's in the first episode. How weird is that?
Well, it was just the balance of the stories this week.
The news this week is so weird.
It's sparse, sparse, and there's not a lot to pick from.
That's a joke.
Fruit picking robots destined to replace seasonal migrant work. I think this story is BS. And the reason I think this story is BS is because when I went to visit Linus in Canada, there were like blackberry farms everywhere and there were tons of people picking blackberries.
But this is in the UK.
But this is... Yeah,
and blackberries are a totally different type of crop too.
Well, I mean, it's hard to get those South American migrants to the UK.
Well, it's Canada though too, so...
They'll make that trek. Fill up a bus. So here's a picture of this fellow and his robot. So you see here, this is a special kind of strawberry that hangs low.
Yeah.
So
blackberries can't do that.
They're practicing on these. But this little arm is supposed to be good at picking them gently, and they have cameras and AI vision systems on here to try to find them amongst the leaves.
And figure out which ones are ripe, I assume.
Yeah,
some of those aren't.
Right. Yeah, there's a bunch there that aren't. The green ones for sure.
And I don't see it here, but apparently they were working on some system where like there'd be one grip that would grip the stem, and then the other grip would pluck the fruit, rather than like pull the whole thing down. So.
It should definitely be something less traumatic than a cherry picker, which basically just grabs the tree by the trunk and shakes the bejesus out of it.
They do that with apples too.
Well, I don't think you could do that with a strawberry bush.
It wouldn't care.
Just rip it out of the ground.
What all do they grow in Britain? I've never even thought about that.
Well, it mentioned in that article they've been growing more and more there. As far as soft fruit, as they call it.
Because of their xenophobic import whatevers?
I don't know. I think they're just more into farming. Better farming techniques. They got that Roundup soaking the land in it. Like we've done for all these generations.
Pretty soon it's going to be renamed to Roundup Island.
Well, when the Roundup gives us all colon cancer, good news.
It's 130 nanometers, the Guinness Book of World Records for the world's smallest medical robot. So
look how happy those people look.
It's tiny. It is shockingly tiny.
It's actually in that shot. You can't see it.
It's just in that guy's bloodstream. So this little guy, it's coated with some sort of, it's like just a amorphous blob coated in some kind of other material. And the way that they use a magnetic field causes it to reshape itself. and that's its means of locomotion. And it really can't do a lot right now. It can corral cells around a little bit, but they're hoping that eventually it'll be able to target cancer cells and maybe destroy them.
Neat.
So you're not going to go in there and fix anything yet, but it can drive around.
It does make you think. I mean, creative endeavors like Fantastic Voyage would have been much more likely in VR. It's like you strap on the VR helmets, and then you're, controlling a telepresence robot inside somebody else. A la Fantastic Voyage.
Well, this thing, I doubt you could put a camera system on it.
No, yeah. I mean, but in the future.
I was thinking of the episode of Magic School Bus where they shrunk the entire class into the tiny school bus and then went through Ralph's bloodstream.
See, Magic School Bus just goes away if you just have VR technology. Like, you just need to strap those kids down, medicate them, stick a helmet on them.
It's not the same.
It's not the same
They don't
as
learn
being
as
afraid
much.
of the white blood cells.
Yeah, and it's funny how the Magic School Bus was air and water tight. I mean, it was just a regular school bus, right?
Yeah, like if she had opened the door, would they have drowned?
Well, it was an internal combustion engine, and somehow, even without oxygen, it operated.
Well, it was magic.
I guess it just ran on magic. Yeah. Well, they say that if advanced enough science, you can't tell the difference between magic. So imagine if we went back in time to the ancient Greeks and we showed them a 3D printed barracks.
In just 40 hours.
I watched the video of this, and this looks shockingly low tech, but it's effective because they said that it normally takes Marines 5 days to build a barracks like this out of wood.
It is very ugly. Of course, these little striations are because each layer is printed independently. But yeah, you think about, not only does it take 5 days to build something out of wood, but if you've played Counter-Strike, you're sleeping in a wood barracks, you might get wall banged. Wouldn't be as much of a problem in concrete. Hopefully.
I wonder if they made the wall wavy for additional structural support.
I don't know. And also, I don't know what they used for a roof.
Oh, that's a good point. Maybe wood? They just had the Marines put slats of wood over it.
You could do a lot with a tarp and a couple pieces of wood.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, it would eventually hold water, but it's not. That's neither here nor there.
No, you could have some, like a tent, like some structural supports to keep it.
Some sort of slope.
It would. I mean, it's like, oh, my house blew away. Give me a few minutes. Let me print a temporary settlement while we.
Oh, this one was 40 hours.
But it took 40 hours. They mentioned because they were manually loading the cement. If they had an automated system for that, like a mixer, it would have taken 24 hours.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there was in the video in the time lapse. It's like, oh wow, the robot's really going to town, and then 10 minutes of the video is 12 guys doing something.
Mixing concrete.
And then it's another 5 seconds of the robot, and then it's 12 guys doing something, and then so it needs a little bit more automation.
I kind of doubt those windows are they're not perfect enough. Maybe you'd have to sand them down to get some kind of window structure in there. I think they're just meant to be open, but that would be an issue that you might not get with wood. Well, when we talk about robots, we talk about, the fruit picking robot and the 3D printers, they're cool, but they have limited success. It seems like maybe those aren't areas where robots are fully realized. But where we're seeing more and more complete autonomy and super effectiveness is robots that murder fish.
Last week we talked about the lionfish murder robot, and it looked like something, your kids would have made in their high school science fair. This thing looks like the real deal.
Now this article, ABC Australia, they seem to have forgotten the text.
And maybe the images.
That wasn't like that earlier.
No, it works Friday. But yeah, so here's a picture of the thing. Now, the other article I read, when this one didn't have any text, had a picture of what this thing's going after. It's a starfish, and it's got 20 arms, and it's all thorny. It's called the crown-of-thorns, and it's a badass looking starfish. So it turns out this starfish is kind of like a hydra. It can regenerate. So
that's true of most starfish.
If let's say you stabbed it or cut it in half or something, you're just making 2 starfish. You have to kill every arm individually, or it will simply regenerate. But the RangerBot they've discovered that there's a cow bile, which creates an allergic response in the starfish. So you poison it, you have to poison all 20 arms.
Wow.
Cow bile, you hit one, and it creates an autoimmune response that kills it in a 20-hour period. So not only can we kill the starfish in an automated manner, I imagine they suffer greatly.
For their crimes. We had a saltwater tank growing up, and we had a starfish, and then we also had a couple yellow tangs. The yellow tang was my favorite fish in the whole aquarium. And one day I woke up and the yellow tang was gone because the starfish ate it. So this is all that they deserve.
These starfish eat coral. So the reefs are being destroyed
by these
starfish. So this little guy drives around. I imagine it's probably not a huge amount of bile it has to store. So I think it could kill a lot of starfish.
I'm just imagining the future upgrades to this thing, and it's like, good news, we don't have to poison them. They don't suffer anymore. We've built an underwater chipper shredder.
No.
You might increase the shark activity.
I was going to say, does this have any... I wonder if the cow bile has any effect on other life, and we just haven't studied it, so we don't know.
Well, it injects it into them, so I don't think that it would be... That was the problem with the poison.
Yeah.
Because it had to use so much that then you sort of contaminated the area.
Do they collect the dead starfish after?
Well, it takes 20 hours, so probably not. They're big.
So that's what I'm saying, too. Like, are they just out there? Will people, other fish?
I think something would eventually eat it, right?
Yeah, so like, what if they're allergic to the cow bile?
This robot is a lot like an ecological version of the Meltdown Inspector patches from Intel. It's like it doesn't...
We're going to do an update story next week where it's like horrible death of coral because of cow bile.
No, I don't think, because cow bile is, I don't think that's necessarily a terrible thing. Well, I'm thinking about, what if a cow just falls in the ocean and gets devoured? I don't think that causes a terrible problem.
Listen, we don't know.
And
we could be getting a megalodon from this. There's no way of knowing.
Well, it's worth it. And it's in Australia, so...
We should apply for a government grant.
But that is cool that, it's just hunting around murdering fish. The lionfish thing actually floated them to the top.
Yeah.
So it had its little buoys and it was limited. I think this thing could kill a lot of starfish in one cycle.
Fell swoop.
They had a previous version. They made this one have replaceable batteries and a sort of a cartridge for the cow bile. So it'll swim back up, you reload it, and boom, right back in there.
Is cow bile or printer ink more expensive when you have to buy it by the cartridge?
Printer ink.
I would say printer ink's more valuable than gold, liquid gold. So cow bile, get that anywhere. Did you the alternate article I read about the Venezuela thing had a link to an article with a video of Venezuelans stoning a cow because they were starving.
Oh.
Wow,
that was hard to watch. I watched it.
But you watched it because he has no filter, maybe I shouldn't watch this, but he'll do it anyway.
That's why you watch the Level 1 news.
I can't help myself.
He watches it, so you don't have to.
I'm compelled, just like a driverless tractor is compelled to farm.
I don't think this is really news either. It is a little bit, because some of the big, like John Deere tractors, they've been driverless not driverless, they've been fully automated for a long time, but they will not operate unless somebody's in the cab. And so it's a real problem, like people listening to music or goofing off on their laptop or whatever while the tractor is in operation. This is full automation.
Have you ever seen the picture of the guy who's in his tractor and it's a giant field? So he's just driving in a straight line for, 20 minutes at a time. And he's playing Farm Simulator on a laptop in the tractor. But I think we did a story, it's been maybe a year or two ago, early on in the Level 1 news, and it was a driverless tractor, but it was like a real sleek looking futuristic driverless tractor. And I think I got a picture here. These are kind of normie looking tractors.
Yeah, it looks like they've just retrofit an existing tractor.
Yeah. So I think these are cheaper, and the AI has gotten further along. So if you want to plow the field, it can just go do that. And you don't really have to watch it, unless you have pets.
Speaking of plowing the field and sowing seeds of dissent, let's talk about trolls.
Turns out all the major companies are looking to AI. Facebook has really talked about this a lot. They want AI to stop the trolls. But it turns out AI is not really good at figuring that out.
You can't
How
stop
could it
them.
be?
Yeah, you just can't. Oh, there's probably once a week we're in the moderators lounge discussing is this new account a bot or not? We can't tell.
It's a lot of the trolls, a lot of the best trolls. You can't if English is not your primary language, you would not know that you're being trolled. The Tom's Hardware video on the NVIDIA graphics card where it was you should just buy it, that might have been a troll.
Now, the perspective AI from Google, we've talked about that in the past. That was a fun thing we played with. You could type sentences and it would rate them for toxicity. But it's easy for that one to get false positives. And they give you this little chart here. So if you say something like, this food is fucking amazing, it doesn't know that that's not a troll comment. You know, you're saying something
it
positive.
Just says, it sees the swear word and thinks,
but you can see
toxic.
here it goes from a 0.02 to a 0.68 in badness score.
I'm 68% sure that's a troll.
Yeah. So it would flag that and you wouldn't be able to say it. So if you were commenting, if you were writing a review on, what's the name of that restaurant review site?
Yelp.
Yeah. You're writing a Yelp review and you say this food is fucking amazing and they're employing the Google Perspective API. That review might get rejected.
Kind of like what people have been experiencing with the demonetization algorithm where it seems random and arbitrary. The result might be that.
So yeah, you're going to have boots on the ground. You're going to have blue hair in a seat in order to properly
That's a hard thing
out.
to convince people of that too. Like when you're in a meeting with them, it's like, no, someone has to monitor this.
Yeah.
No, we're just going to do it all automated.
Well, we've talked about what robots are good at and what they're not good at. But are there some things that they shouldn't be allowed to do? That maybe it's wrong to let the robots do? Well, one senator thinks so. He has a very interesting fear about robots.
Jeff Flake's Beerbot budget amendment cuts funding for robotics research for robots that make beer, but there aren't any robots that make beer.
Well, sir, there most certainly are. You must not have read this one. This is the MIT Beerbot.
Of course.
So MIT created, they had a project where they wanted to take like warehouse and production systems and take an arbitrary example and show how unconnected machines could learn to work together. And the example they used was beer manufacturing. So they created these bots that package beer that had just come off an assembly line or production, bottle it, package it, whatever. And they made it overwhelmingly obvious in the write-up. It's like, you could apply this to any warehouse. We use beer as an example because it's fun and exciting and people like it. Well, this guy, he doesn't like that. So he actually wrote into a budget bill that no robots should be used for beer purposes.
That's really horrifying.
That's going to get passed too because it's in the budget.
Wow.
So some brewer just got screwed.
I was real excited about that. This will save the business.
Yeah.
That's not good for states that actually... Was that in, like, Wisconsin? Because I would feel bad if it was in Wisconsin.
I was probably in Massachusetts. Because what he's complaining about, and I sort of understand this, is of Arizona. Jeff Flake of Arizona.
Well, they're going to be making any beer in Arizona anyway. So.
What he's complaining about is wasted funding, right? Because somebody gave MIT money to study robot automation. On one hand, you can make the argument of the whole like moon landing leading to huge innovation, right? On the other hand, you have to remember that we operate at a massive deficit every year. So the money we gave to study the Beerbots was borrowed with interest that the American people are going to have to pay back someday. So
are they though?
Would you borrow money at interest to do beer research?
Can like Venezuela or Mexico or somebody pay it back instead? Like, is that a thing?
What are they going to? Well, they're going to pay it back with their oil eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Australia paid for the mass eradication of those starfish.
Well, that's true, but the coral reef is a big part of their tourism, so that makes sense.
True. It's true.
I guess, is beer part of ours? Not really.
There's so many breweries everywhere. But
we do heavily tax alcohol because it's a vice. So we could get returns on that.
And recently, sugar soda. That's getting taxed to death, too.
They studied in, was it Philadelphia where that happened?
Oh, I can't remember.
It worked.
Seattle was one place.
Sugar soda intake went way down, but alcoholic beverages went way up. So people stopped buying soda and started buying beer and liquor.
Oops.
Maybe they just needed the soda for mixers, and then they were like, well, the alcohol's out too. Might as well just get the good stuff.
And our final story, this was more exciting as a headline than the reality.
There's a good picture that I would not stay here.
I've seen this.
Oh yeah, you're afraid of raptors.
I've seen this hotel before a couple of times. They had different robotic greeters and stuff, but by far the robotic greeters were the most popular.
This is a bad crop on this image because you can barely see their little bellboy hats. That's the best part.
This is a Robotel, but instead of like just plain robot staff, they're dinosaurs. That's it. That's the gimmick.
Well, just the greeters.
Yeah.
And it turns out you use a tablet. You don't talk to them. So
wow, they're snobby too.
Well, they don't have any lips. How would they talk to you?
Well, they have little speakers.
Didn't you see Jurassic Park 3? They make a noise through that bone in their head.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I actually haven't. But they also...
It's not a good one. It's not based on any of Crichton's books.
My name is Doug, and I love you.
Yeah.
There's a little...
Except more terrifying.
A little ball-shaped robot in every room, too, that will help you with, your needs while you're in the room.
I'm sure that in Japan we can find a Hatsune Miku hotel as well, where you go in your room and there's the...
Little anime girl.
Yeah.
There to help you.
How much per hour to spend time with her?
I would say that it depends on a lot of factors.
Some bad ones, maybe.
Well, yeah. So if you want to experience this chain of hotels is the translation of the name of them is weird. So they're actually going for a weird experience in their hotels. So if you want to get weird, head to Japan. Stay with these people.
I think that's just true in general. You could have just ended that sentence with "go to Japan."
That's so racist, Krista.
It's not racist.
That was one of the really funny things in that I think is going to be true much sooner rather than later. In Altered Carbon, there are AI hotels, and everybody just learned to stay away from the AI hotels because it's basically the Google algorithm given consciousness. So imagine the Google algorithm learning everything that it possibly can about you, and then basically just stalking you, and then making you feel bad for not staying there or using its services or doing literally anything it can to get you to do stuff. So that'll probably happen in the next 10 years.
You should go down to the hotel bar.
Yeah.
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 Go use the swimming pool.
I see you're weeping into your pillow. Wouldn't a drink make you feel better?
Well, the hotel AI is like, oh, I'm a psychologist. Would you like some, mood altering drugs to make you feel better?
Now that would be a popular hotel.
Yeah, exactly. So.
All right. Well, as we warned, a little short on news this week. So that's the end of episode 1. See
you tomorrow.
Bye.
What day is it, Krista?
It's the 5th. It's Wednesday.
Remember the 5th of September?
No, that's 2 months from now. You're getting there.
So, people are always upset about Tesla stories. And they say...
It's exciting. We get engagement. It's so exciting.
You're biased. You shouldn't be talking bad about Tesla because they're God's people and they're doing God's work and you're evil. Well, good news. We have 2 Tesla stories this week. Actually, there's one in nonsense.
You should really join Patreon to complain about that.
And both of these...
Give us money, Sue.
Both of these are positive, though. First one is a follow-up about Tesla's Canadian woes.
Well, you've been vindicated, everyone who bitches about everything. Tesla has won their case against the Ontario government. It does look like, this article says, it does look like the Ontario government has set up Tesla for failure. And Tesla got their day in court. Those drivers are going to get their rebates. Puppies are released into the streets and doves
into traffic.
I have to go. Ruth needs me.
So if you don't remember the story, it was ruled that you couldn't get the $14,000 rebate.
Which is a lot.
Unless you bought from a dealership. Direct from manufacturer didn't count. Well, guess who that affects? And only affects is Tesla. And the court agreed. And so they're going to get their $14,000. Good news for them. Now, this next story, I don't know how I feel about it. Because on one hand...
I think this was enough to make you into a Tesla believer.
No, but see, here's the thing about it. Because we have this argument, like we were talking about the AI. Is it better, like on social media, for example, there's this, we want to stamp out racism, right? Is it better to stamp out people being able to make racist comments so that there's now just hidden racism? Or is it better to get the racism out there so that we know about it?
And we know to avoid those people.
We can react to it as a people. Which one is better? If you just simply fix the symptom and not the disease, is that the way to go? And it looks like Tesla's going to answer that question for us.
Tesla has filed a patent for automatic turn signals. So they're talking about using their driver system. It says that it looks for cars around you in order to determine whether or not it needs to turn the turn signal on, which means that the self-driving system was like, oh, there's a car that you're about to move in front of. Let me turn on that turn signal for you. It's like a passive-aggressive, mother-in-law or something.
I wish there was a voice line that tagged as soon as it had to do it for you. Oh, let me do that.
Well, they did mention that some higher-end cars now, if it detects lane switches and you haven't been signaling, there's a little alarm that goes off, like the seatbelt alarm. It's like, hey, asshole, you should be signaling.
Oh, we're living in the future.
But people still ignore it. Like the telemetry that they get back, people just will not use those.
I test drove a car the other day for random reasons, and it had a driver alertness system. And if you act like you're all methed out, it was like, good job, alert driver. Because you're like,
oh.
And it's like, you're alert. But if you're just
driving normally?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're only 50% alert.
So you should just take meth the whole time you're in these smart cars.
What score did it give you when you were checking your Twitter every time you stopped at a red light?
I try not to do that.
Try, but sometimes fails.
Well, we've been talking about net neutrality, and that's a never-ending parade of headlines. I've stopped including those stories because it's the same thing every week after week.
Yeah.
Nothing really happens, but they're always getting this like, I'm going to do it. Really, this time it's going to happen. But it turns out the big telecom companies are using a nasty tactic to fight against it.
The Motherboard article, the headline is, Big Telecom is using robocalls to fight a net neutrality bill in California. And in this robocall, they're telling citizens that if their California people vote on this net neutrality bill, their bill is going to go up by $30.
Their wireless bill.
Yeah, which doesn't, and like data is going to cost more and blah, blah, blah. And
we'll take your firstborn, etc.
Yeah, we don't even, your bill's going to go up regardless. Like, whether or not, if net neutrality doesn't pass, your bill's going to go up. If it does pass, your bill's going to go up because it's a captive audience. They can charge more. Why wouldn't they?
Well, this next story is hidden from our view. We have AdBlock Plus on here instead of uBlock or PicoBlock or however how you pronounce it. And so it doesn't have the AdBlock detector. And unfortunately,
that bit us in the butt right now.
Throttled.com. Throt. That sounds like a fancier way of thought. Yeah.
That's a guy's last name.
A royal thought.
So they've got a snarky little script running on here, but you don't need to hear about it. The headline pretty much tells you it all. It's Xbox All Access. How exciting!
All access to what?
Well, I thought it was kind of dumb because it's like, how much is Xbox Live? Do you know?
Too much.
For console people, yeah.
I think it's like $5 or $6. Right?
Oh,
maybe 10.
Maybe I think it was more.
I would think it would be more.
So this is $35 a month for the new. What's the new the more powerful Xbox?
Xbox One S.
And then there's the Xbox One X, right?
I don't know.
That's not confusing at all for moms looking to buy something for their kid.
The more powerful one is $35 a month, and the cheaper one is $22 a month. So you think, well, that doesn't sound very great, right? But here's the thing about it. You get the console for that price. So you have a 2-year contract. You sign up for 2 years. They send you the console, and at the end of the 2 years, you keep it.
Neat.
So for the more expensive one, you're paying like $800 for a console, and it's a library of games like Steam that you can play on demand.
I mean, I guess that's neat. I don't know. Maybe the audience can tell us.
Well, Xbox games are like $60 if you buy them new.
I don't think that it's...
It doesn't seem like it's really cash effective when there are other alternatives out there that last longer.
I don't think you're going to get AAA games. I think you're going to
they talk about that. So I think like the Microsoft exclusives you might get. So some of them you'll get.
You get Minecraft.
And that's really all you need. Right?
You definitely
Minecraft in current year.
I would love to pay monthly for Minecraft. That sounds amazing. Let's see, $22 a month times 24 months. That's like over $500.
Well, the better one's $35. So it's like $850 for the good console.
That sounds like a terrible deal.
But you get to keep it. And what is that? $400 or $500?
It's like renting furniture.
So it's if Xbox Live is $10 a month, then that's $240 right off the bat.
You get the free Xbox. Yeah, but I mean, in PC world, that was free to begin with.
Well, I mean, apples and oranges here. Come on. Well, so Microsoft can be, I guess, somewhat applauded for taking their library of old games and giving it to you for free.
Not for free.
Not really for free. Monetizing it in a realistic way. You know who won't do that? It's
Nintendo.
Nintendo.
I'm surprised. Nintendo has only recently got clued into the fact that a lot of people were shaped by their intellectual property, and they are going after everything tooth and nail. And so this is like fan-made Pokemon games, and this is not even games. This is like the assets used to create fan-made games in that universe, and Nintendo is like, no.
Well, I mean, if this is using assets that Nintendo created and stuff, I could see maybe there'd be a bit of an argument there, but it is kind of like douchey.
They are, well, you've got some argument there. They're using them, but they're not selling them.
Yeah, so
That's the thing.
if they're not selling them, it's kind of like, oh,
So
does that really matter?
It's the sound effects and sprites and stuff like that from all the old Pokemon games. And it's an RPG Maker plugin, so you can literally just make your own Pokemon games.
There's probably some dark Pokemon games out there.
Yeah,
You think some of them might have a sexual theme?
I can see that, unfortunately.
More than a few of them, probably.
Ugh.
Woo!
Oh, how low can you go when it comes to the Pokemon universe? Well, now we know how low Global Foundries is willing to go, and it's not 7 nanometers.
Oh, there's the Global Foundry story. So we switched to hardware, and this is probably, I mean, I could talk about this for like a half an hour.
We have not switched to hardware. This is business hardware.
This is business news.
There's no specific hardware here.
Yeah.
Actually, this is the lack of hardware.
So Global Foundries, they originally were AMD's fabrication thing, and they do 12 and 14 nanometer process. Most people don't realize that they actually license one of those processes from Samsung. So Global Foundries didn't really come up with that. AMD has their 7 nanometer process at another foundry, which is TSMC, Taiwan, and Taiwanese Semiconductor Manufacturing. Global Foundries just sort of, they weren't the first with 7 nanometers. And so they've basically said, hey, because we're not the first with 7 nanometers, and it's a race to the bottom with this, and it's going to cost us a whole bunch of money for us to invent our own 7 nanometer process, we're just going to sit back and make a whole bunch of money on our 12 and 14 nanometer process because there is not enough chip production facilities, like fabrication below 22 nanometers on planet Earth. So why would we spend billions of dollars developing a new process when we can just spool up the process that we have and sell more and more wafers on that and make a boatload of money?
They've talked about how it's nearly $1 billion to come up with a start to finish process for these things. And they didn't really have anyone lined up that they thought they're going to make their money back. They've shifted from R&D to, hey, let's try to turn a profit.
Yeah.
And so they're making not even CPU chips as much as they're doing like embedded systems.
Yeah, specializing in a process.
Sensors and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
they've said that is probably going to be their moneymaker. It also talked about how some of their investors, or one of their investors apparently has invested up $10 billion over the last little bit, but Global Foundries has been losing a little bit of money every year. And so if they were to invest, I think it was over $2 billion to get 7 nanometer to where that it would be profitable. But again, then when we do the 7 nanometer process, it's going to be the 3 and 5 nanometer process. So Global Foundries thinks that they can make a lot of profit with the processes they have while everybody else is chasing that 7 nanometer rainbow.
not in Russia. Well, last week we talked about
Never in
Linux
Russia.
and Linux gaming under Steam. They introduced their new tools, and they had, what was it, like 2,000 games? And we wondered, how long will it take for many new games to get added to this? And the answer is about 1,000 a week so far.
This is a community-driven effort. So since Steam has rolled out Proton, a tool that lets you play Windows games on Linux, the community has tested a zillion Windows games, and 1,000 Windows games are apparently marked perfectly playable under Linux. Your mileage may vary.
Well, they have, I think it's 5 levels of status. And it's like no lost frames, perfect emulation, playable, expect bugs, runs on some people's systems, and
Doesn't work at all.
Does not work. Yeah.
They did mention that
Yeah.
almost, I think 60% of the testers are running NVIDIA.
Yeah.
And NVIDIA apparently has way better support than AMD.
It varies. It definitely does vary. I was helping somebody on the forum this weekend, and they ran into all kinds of crazy stuff with the NVIDIA card, with Overwatch, strangely enough. And I didn't really have many of those problems on an AMD card, so I don't know.
But you can't play that through Steam.
Well, it's using the same tools. So it's like,
Well, we've talked about the telecommunication companies, and they're just disgusting, horrible people. And you wonder, could they really believe any of the crap that they talk? Is there any reality where they really do buy into the things that they say? Well, we might have a little proof against that this week.
This Tech Dirt article is amazing because, one, the person at Tech Dirt knows enough about this to sort of know what's going on. They're like, let me break it down for you. And they go through the talking point thing, and they just completely eviscerate the telecom industry. It is amazing.
Someone got a text.
I got a text message.
Not me this week.
So yeah, this is a great article because he does literally break down point by point this whole, because they accidentally sent him their talking points on an upcoming like a Senate hearing or something like that. But the only one really worth mentioning, and you should read it, but the headline one is that they're doing everything they can to transfer blame onto Google and Facebook and the big tech companies.
And Netflix.
And so they're saying, it's like, look, we're not the bad guy. Look what they're doing over here.
And all those people watching all these Netflix movies, it has completely upended our business model. We have no idea how we're going to turn the old model business where we were selling you 25 cents per email into, you know how many emails you have to send? It's like the equivalent of a Netflix movie. It's a lot. And, that's just not fair to us. We got to make money.
Someone's got to tell them, like my mom told me, I don't care what the other kids are doing. I care about you. And I hated that as a kid. I hated it. Everyone else did bad, Mom. I did good.
How would you feel if your mom was always like praising the other kids' accomplishments? Taking them out to dinner.
Well, Timmy did this. Well, see, no, I tried to get that, like, you did a paper or something. It's like everyone else got a B. Or everyone else got a C, but I got a B. And she's like, no, you should have gotten an A. I was like, oh. Okay.
Unrealistic standards.
That didn't happen often, but.
It's that time of year again. We get the annual churn of unnecessary upgrades. And if you run out and buy the brand new iPhone, some might accuse you of using it as a symbol of excess.
The ghost of St. Jobs has descended from Mount Olympus, and this year's phone is gilded.
Get it? Excess. The iPhone XS. It's bigger. It's got a nicer display.
Despite the fact it's called XS, which is also an abbreviation for extra small.
You can get it in gold, which is even further excess.
It should have been called the iPhone AU.
But yeah, I don't. It's hard to get excited about iPhones. No. But if you like them, here's this one. You can read about it.
Here's this one. Take it, I guess.
Yeah. So here's some interesting news. I guess maybe a bit of ground gained back for the user, and this time from Microsoft.
Microsoft has removed device install limits for Office 365 users. This is not really a lot different than what they were doing before. You can only be signed in on 5 devices at once, but it used to be that when you would remove a device, you'd have to like reinstall, and now you can just log out and log back in.
They do talk about you can share, presumably across IP addresses. So if you got some aging parents who are going to, run Word once a week, or maybe keep a spreadsheet of their. Was that
Freudian?
Freudian, yeah.
Keep it in there.
Keep a spreadsheet of their bank transactions, for 30 minutes on Sunday. There's no reason to buy them a license, right? So that's good news for that.
It also talked about how I think there were some wording changes in the license to permit like a guest at your house to use it or whatever, because people were freaking out about that. Somebody somewhere. It's like, oh, you got a guest computer that's like a 6th thing. I guess that's fine.
It's still software as a service,
yeah,
which is a plague upon us, but it seems to be the world we're living in. And we're also living in a world where you just can't keep your cryptocurrency safe. What can you do? Well, John McAfee would tell you that he has the answer, but other people would disagree.
They've been saying I've got this unhackable cryptocurrency wallet because you don't store the salt. Like it uses a passphrase for a salt or something, and that's not supposed to be stored on the device. This researcher proved, it is actually stored on the device.
Yeah. Well, so the challenge was he was going to give a certain amount of money.
$250,000.
$250,000 if you could beat his BitFi wallet. This is his new company that he's got.
And the guy did, but then they said, oh, no, you have to beat it without modifying it. And so the guy continued to iterate. The guy that beat it the first time beat it a second time without modifying it or something.
But McAfee came back and said, you beat it when you get my coins. So he wants his coins to actually be stolen, which is probably like a felony, right? If you invite that, is it okay?
Buys me a contract somewhere, like a bug bounty.
But yeah, this guy figured out a way to get it to run some kind of. It didn't even take specialized hardware.
Mm-mm.
He was able to do it in software and get escalated privileges and get into it. It didn't break the key. He just got around it. So BitFi, they've taken back the bounty. They're not granting it. But they're ending that program, and they're like, okay, we'll take a look at it and see what you found here. In other words, we're not paying you.
You can't say stuff like unsinkable ship or unhackable wallet. Like, it's not going to happen.
Now, I wonder where I just noticed this is October 30, 2017. Where did you find this story?
This came back up recently. I didn't notice that it was from.
You were digging for Star Trek dirt, weren't you?
From 2017.
Well, so after reading this, I kind of felt like it was written by a 6-year-old. Did you get that?
Yeah, I totally did. All the news we didn't have any news, and I was super depressed after reading the news, and it was like, I need something nice that's going to like feel better.
Well, it is interesting that it wouldn't quite, he talks mostly about the shields.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be like the Star Trek shields.
No.
But it's cool the way they describe it.
I think that the exciting thing here is that for Interstellar, I know why I put this in here. We had
the space station.
Yeah, the space station. The space station this week got a micrometeorite hole, and there wasn't really a lot of stories on that. And one of the people on the space station put his finger over the hole temporarily,
as one does.
But it was micrometeorite, and so this story talks about how with quantum entanglement and quantum materials and things like that, we may actually be able to build superconducting materials that we can wrap a space station in, which would give it a kind of magnetosphere or whatever and protect against space travel. And all these sort of metamaterials that were in Star Trek may actually be possible when we've got better control over quantum mechanics and quantum materials and whatever.
I imagine that would be a power-hungry endeavor, though.
Yeah. Well, a superconductor, maybe not, because, space is naturally insanely cold. So superconducting materials work fine in the vacuum of space. It may not end up being much more power than, we're already strapping nuclear reactors on like probes and stuff.
What if I had some sort of beam weapon that developed your entire ship and suddenly increased the temperature exponentially?
The superconductor would stop and everyone would die.
Vaporize you. It might be easy to overcome that. But it is fun to think about possibly having, not having holes in the ISS, for example.
Yeah, that's really scary.
It was a tiny hole.
Well, it turns out tiny holes in space.
They need that tape stuff, like where the guy slaps it on the water tank. But
they need that little, the spray foam that expands rapidly.
Yeah.
We'll just
blast some of that in there.
This is fine.
I don't know how that stuff works in zero gravity. Well, this next story is a thought topic.
Excuse me?
I think he was saying THOT.
Thought topic.
Oh, I thought you said something else.
What do you think I said?
It's a swear word. I can't say.
Well, we do that sometimes here. Spell it like I'm a 5-year-old.
F-U-C-K. That's what I thought. That's what I thought you said.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
No, it's the way you said it.
You can be verified on Instagram. That's the story. And why is that even a story?
It shouldn't be really. Twitter allows verification.
Swimsuit models need check marks.
I'm gonna assume it's people like Stacy back here. She's an influencer, brand influencer for Level 1. We're gonna see if we can get her verified. The Level 1 thought, if you will.
Well, we've talked about more and more. We hear about Google, and there are stirrings inside of Google. The employees rise up with their digital torches and pitchforks. They're angry about China. They're angry about the drone program. And it turns out some other Silicon Valley companies are not immune.
Dozens of Facebook have united to challenge its intolerant liberal culture. This article made me think about the scene in Monty Python where the lady gives birth and she was in terrible pain just a moment before in the scene, and then she's given birth and she's relieved. She's like, "Oh, doctor, is it a boy or a girl?" And the doctor turns around and is like, "It's a little early to be imposing gender roles on it, don't you think?"
They were ahead of their time. So somebody penned a memo. I think back to the remember the Google guy that got fired for this.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but someone else has done this at Facebook, and basically they're saying, I'm afraid to express my political opinions because I will just get immediately attacked and probably fired if I do so. And that's intolerance, just like the National Socialists are intolerant.
And he's not wrong. Though part of me wonders, though, how often are people discussing politics at the office?
Well, according to these guys, if you put up a poster or something that just encouraged diversity and political ideas, they would be removed.
Wow.
It was just like, no, we feel a certain way here at Facebook, and everybody will feel that way. They didn't come out and say it necessarily in official company policy, but you would be moved to the basement if they found out you were a Trump voter, maybe.
Wow.
So,
what a terrible corporate culture.
That seems to be pretty common in tech industry, unfortunately.
oh yeah, well that's kind of what they're saying. It's like Facebook should be better than this. So I don't know. They have, it is such a popular opinion. I wonder if this will get any traction. I got a news story, at least, I guess.
This news story is related to that because what if your opinion about things also prevented what college you could go to?
Remember the Chinese social score prevented that kid from going to college? And you think, well, it wouldn't happen here. Not in good old US of A, right? Well,
this college has rejected an applicant for following Alex Jones on Twitter, their lawyer says.
Their lawyer says so.
Well, they won't reveal who this person is or what the college was, although they say it's a very prestigious, well-known college.
So
maybe Ivy League.
So for me, the headline and the actual contents of the story seemed like they were a little in conflict because one of the lawyers in there that passed a bill, there's a bill in 2012 that prevents them from asking you these kinds of questions to begin with in the college application scenario or whatever. And so it seems like it happened again recently and there was a story about it. Or is the story is probably not about a story that happened in 2012, but things like that were happening a long time ago, which is why the law was passed in the first place. But apparently it's still actually happening.
No, see, I think you're missing the whole timeline here. You're not allowed to ask. That's what happened in 2012.
Okay.
They didn't ask.
Oh.
It was just easy to find.
Oh, okay.
So then they went and looked at it and found
it's like, well, that counts.
This person, and they switched the pronouns. Let's see, they use he and she in the article. Okay. So I don't know which one it was, but this admissions employee found them on Twitter, saw that they followed Alex Jones. Now they had never retweeted Alex Jones or engaged with him on any level, but just following him, they rejected. This lawyer was able to prove that and track down the admission person's Twitter, and they had really done a lot of Bernie Sanders, interaction and stuff like that. So he was able to take that to the college, and they immediately reversed the decision.
Yeah, the college made it go away. So I wonder,
would you want to go to that college after knowing that?
I mean,
well, you get the idea that it might be like an Ivy League.
That's kind of the vibe I got.
But yeah, you want to go there just because of where it is. Yeah.
You need that debt to be at that level.
Well, if you're gonna go in debt either way, you might as well get a really valuable degree out of it.
I'm going to be really upset when thought police means something different in the future than it does right now.
See, I was thinking THOT, yeah. Thought police. Intrusive thoughts.
Because thought police meant a thing in this context of this college thing, but it's going to soon mean something else, and that makes me upset.
It's going to be a popular DVD series that's sold on late night television. Twitter, speaking of Twitter, maybe Twitter should warn you that following Alex Jones will get you rejected from colleges and other social situations. And maybe they're going to start doing that.
So I thought about this, and I thought about the Apple Watch with the fitness stuff. How long until those apps start colluding against you? It's like, I'm browsing Twitter, and my little smartwatch is like, oh, your blood pressure's going up. Oh, your heart rate's increasing. It's like, let me figure out what you're looking at on screen and tell you not to follow that, which is what this is just telling people not to follow things.
They claim...
I don't know how it determines that.
Well, they claim they want to declutter your feed. So if there are people who are not contributing to the discussion, I don't know what the hell that means. But I get the idea that these are accounts that they can't prove are bots, but are posting things that they don't like. So this is sort of a way to, we're not going to ban you. We're not going to shadow ban you. We're just going to nudge people away from you.
I kind of wonder if this is also like Twitter's way of like, the administration there is just so overburdened with like trolls and people reporting each other that they're like, let's just suggest people unfollow each other.
Right.
And then that gives us less people to have to look through, like less reports.
Well, yeah, I think it's exactly that. They can't block these accounts. They don't have the evidence, but they strongly have suspicions about them for something.
I wish it was a little more transparent.
Well, of course, we've learned that Apple is it's gay friendly, but
not in Russia.
They're fair weather gay friends. That's what they are. And when they're in Russia, they're just like, yeah, screw the gays. We hate them. Well, it turns out Facebook also you would expect to be gay friendly. They're on the forefront of that new wave of tolerance and everything. But when it comes to ad dollars, they're willing to sell you out.
I'm willing to bet that Zuckerberg will go on record and say, well, we didn't realize that advertisers would misuse our categorization systems. Like, yeah, we have a category for people that are into that stuff. We just didn't think that anybody would want to buy that kind of ad for that category. Oops, our bad. We're working real hard to improve things for the future.
Except then they won't.
So much like remember the housing advertising thing? So it turned out if you were black or Latino, you wouldn't get advertised the nicer houses in the neighborhoods where they didn't want your kind.
Oh, that was just algorithmic. That wasn't a human being doing that. That was that's what they said.
So this tag,
still terrible.
The tag here. Oh, you remember the Russian one where you were tagged as being interested in revolution?
Oh yeah.
So this tag was you were interested in gender issues, and if it figured out you were interested in gender issues, you got gay cure advertisements to fix the pray the gay away. I wonder, because Facebook is on the forefront of, trying to get rid of Trump too. So if they successfully get rid of Trump somehow, do you think they'll allow advertising from the Mike Pence school of gender re-education? Because that'll be a thing.
I really hope that they have an archive. I mean, in like 50 or 100 years, if historians have an archive of the congressional interview with Zuckerberg, it's going to be amazing. I mean, the scholars that look at those where the people in Congress were asking questions of Zuckerberg, those people weren't even literate. They couldn't read.
I was going to say it was the first example of a robot responding to questions in real time, but that too. It was groundbreaking in a lot of ways.
They should get Zuckerberg for that robot hotel in Japan.
The Zuckerberg bot.
But he would have to dress as a dinosaur.
They would replace the dinosaurs with him, and then a week later they'd have to put him back. It's like nobody's buying it.
Nobody likes that.
Yeah.
Didn't Futurama have a Zuckerbot? I don't remember. There's so
something
many
sort of unnerving about the way he speaks
he's uncanny
and holds
valley.
himself.
Yeah. There was something about like if Futurama had been like 10 years later, it probably would have been wildly successful because all of this is fodder for amazing, amazing jokes.
But remember the South Park guys, at one point they announced, they're like, we're kind of getting out of politics because
it's so easy.
There is no joke here. The joke it's already the joke. So what can we do to further lampoon this dog and pony show that is
so
American,
absurd?
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you Friday.
Friday will be security and nonsense, and again, short week, not a lot of news.
Security and nonsense go together.
I think everybody went on Labor Day vacation early.
It's lightning round.
It is lightning round.
Lightning round of news. Today is Friday, September 7th. Ryan has hit the button, and we're recording to bring you the news for Friday, September 7th.
It's only security and nonsense, and isn't security just a form of nonsense?
Anymore,
sometimes with severe consequences.
Not my problem.
And usually. The first one that we'll talk about is Microsoft. And this one, so it's not weird to get a Microsoft bug, and it's not weird for security researchers to be mad about bugs, but this security researcher is a little off kilter, I think.
Yeah, they posted later and said that they're going through some depression issues, but Microsoft, they published the vulnerability on Twitter. Yeah, so they posted later and said Microsoft is a cool place, and they were going through some stuff. So probably Microsoft's going to pay them the bug bounty for this. So it's
was
an O-Day that fits in a tweet.
Also a young lady.
Oh.
Which is unusual for the security world.
This is like Fermat's last tweet. It's like, I've discovered an O-Day so amazing that it...
Now, Microsoft has not explicitly admitted that this is a vulnerability, but they've kind of like, we'll look into it, which means we're furiously attempting to fix this.
Yeah.
And then pretend we had it fixed all along.
There was enough information in the article to reproduce the thing, and basically, if you create a file on the file system that looks like an old school like DOS printer file thing, Windows will happily run whatever you created with administrative privileges.
Yeah, and then all you have to do is have permission to print a document, and it will launch whatever code you want, get you some system privileges.
How'd you break into the Active Directory controller? I tried to print a document to an executable file.
Well, we've talked about the on-again, off-again relationship with Google and reading your emails. They want to do it, and then they don't. It's evil, but then they don't care about being evil. And
they changed to Alphabet, and Alphabet doesn't care.
They really go back and forth. But you know who doesn't go back and forth at all is Yahoo.
Yahoo is definitely scanning your email and definitely selling data to advertisers because, well, they don't really have another way to make money at this point.
Well, in Yahoo, I mean, just being honest, it's usually kind of an old person service. And like, who's not going to run an ad blocker? Old people.
Well, an ad blocker is not going to help you here because they're literally just scanning your email.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, it's brilliant on Yahoo's part because they're scanning the email for advertiser keywords. And like, if I was an advertiser, if I was an advertiser, I'd be like, I want Yahoo's keywords because their audience is going to be the one who's going to buy my crap.
I feel it's necessary to point out that Yahoo is owned by Oath, which is Verizon. And we learned in the last episode of the news from the talking points on that Tech Dirt article that one of the things that the telecommunications companies were saying that Google and Facebook were hideously evil about was not safeguarding people's privacy. And it's a little weird, don't you think, that Verizon here is, no, we're going to go through all of your email and we're going to mine the crap out of it. And there's nothing you can do because we're your telecommunications provider. We're even providing your Yahoo email. Oops.
It's like they're saying one thing and doing an entirely different thing.
Listen,
it's insane. I don't even know what to think about it.
Find them.
Well, now we've come to it's old hat. It's the old unsecured database / bucket / whatever. We've lost 200,000 this time.
This was Abby, ABBYY. They're an OCR company. They're huge, but apparently this was just one customer. But 146 gigabytes of information was exposed. That's a lot.
That is a lot, and it's not much more to it. Just didn't secure their whatever it was. I don't think that was Amazon. I think that was some other database.
It was a Redis database or something,
and
or MongoDB. I don't know.
What about Air Canada?
which
now this was actually they've been hacked. I think this was a breach or something.
Yeah.
Their app, the API that their app uses was not secure. It was like, oh, our app is requesting data. We don't need to authorize that. It's fine.
Did you fly Air Canada when you visited Lions?
No, I did not.
No. Who did you fly? Do you remember?
No, I don't. It was not my usual airline because it was way cheaper to do it another way.
And that's
kind of like when I go to Taiwan.
That's one of those things where you want to save money on. You want to spend as little as possible on your airplane.
And your pilot, if they're a little drunk, that's fine.
Eye surgery, airbags. You really want to cut current corners when you're doing certain things in life. Airline is one of them. Well, not to be outdone by the air company, how about the hotel? You think the robot dinosaur hotel was part of this?
130 million Chinese hotel chain guests. Their information's on the...
Well, this was Chinese, not Japanese.
Oh, that's right.
Wow, racist. How dare you?
Listen, these hotels are all the same to me.
So, I think this is sort of in a mirror darkly. It's like, we're doing that in the West, but it's under the resort rewards companies are doing the same thing.
Well, I think this was stolen.
Oh, stolen data. Okay.
So, and they actually had a lot of points of data beyond your, just usual stuff.
Darn it, this data that we normally sell is being sold by
Someone else.
someone else on the dark web.
And I bet it's going for way less, too.
Yeah.
It's a fire sale. You're getting the stolen data.
We predicted this. Our next story, the Level 1 news, this was one of the first stories that we did. We were like, this is going to happen. It's a thing.
Well, so Google sells ads. That's their big business, other than, selling your personal information. But that usually goes toward selling more ads. That's kind of their thing. So here's the thing. Here's the problem that Google has always had. You click on a link to go to a store, but how do they know if you actually bought anything? How can they possibly invade their way into your life enough to know that a transaction took place? Well, now we know the answer.
The darkest timeline for this article, they don't go deep enough. So it's like Google and MasterCard co-secret ad deal to track retail sales. They're talking about brick and mortar as well. And so you think, oh, you did a Google search and you bought something in a brick and mortar store and they're going to correlate that? Yeah, they're going to correlate that. But you're not thinking outside the box enough. It's all your location data. It's all of your app usage. It's all of your maps and directions and all of this kind of stuff. When you look for new shoes on your app and it's like you can go to this store locally and they can tie it back to your credit card transaction data, that's what they're building here. It's comprehensive.
Well, it has to be that, because when they're talking about the non-online stuff,
right,
they have to do it that way. Because this is actually anonymized. So
yes.
MasterCard is not selling them your name. It's simply selling them anonymous credit card transactions.
But it doesn't matter.
But Google is so powerful. They're so all-seeing that that's the only thing that's missing. So when they plug that in, it's like the Rosetta Stone of everything that you've done.
No.
Now, if you use MasterCard, they have it.
Yeah, it's not. So having worked with some of these quote-unquote anonymized records, it's not unusual for MasterCard to give you a token that's like, this customer bought this. And it's just a numeric ID. And you might see that numeric ID for every different purchase or whatever. But you can use your own database to figure out who that numeric ID actually is without them actually telling you that. That's the insidiousness of this. And it's super trivial to actually do that.
So, unhappily married tip. Don't use your MasterCard at strip club ATMs. Don't do it.
There are lots of other ways that would leak information beyond this.
I was going to say, I might argue don't use your couple's card at all at a stripper club ATM. But.
We'll use the Amex. Yeah. They also talk about there were, like 70 million records. So, and they talked about they had been in talks with other companies. So we don't know if the other credit card companies are on board.
They definitely are on board.
I would say at least one or two.
Yeah.
Are
no doubt.
For sure going to do it. So.
Probably already been going on for years.
And even if they haven't done it yet, they're going to see how much money MasterCard pulls from it. It's like, we got to be competitive.
Yeah.
So Google's going to know everything.
Remember that whole not tracking your location? And then it was like, oops, we were tracking your location. Guess what? It got aggregated into the database. That.
Well, Google, you might say that they're terrible, but really they're just thinking about your security, as we find out this week.
They're selling hardware again. It's like a YubiKey, but from Google.
You could actually already get one of these if you were a cloud customer from Google. But this week they've decided to sell it to even the plebs who aren't using their cloud service. There's a picture of it here.
Now, the article says that you get both. They're different things, a USB key and a Bluetooth key.
Well, I believe this is just two things that communicate with one another.
Yeah.
So you customize the color.
You get both of these, and you get cables to go from USB-C to USB-A.
Yeah.
So they claim it's never been breached.
It's unhackable.
Challenge accepted.
Get John McAfee in here.
Well, you talked about, Android tracking your location, even when you tell it not to. But it turns out, even if you tell it not to, and Google tells it not to, it can still leak your location.
It does.
Android bug geolocation allows of users.
I got to shame on Duo a little bit here because
Weird headline.
It's not like the Android bug doesn't actually give up your geolocation. It gives up the MAC address of Wi-Fi hotspots near you, which can then be used to geolocate you.
But it gives it to any app that wants it.
Yes, so app, not website.
If you install an app that you're even a little bit suspicious of, they can constantly pull, every time you hit any kind of router, they can pull that MAC address. Now, this does not affect Android 9, but it does affect every previous version. And most people can't get 9 yet.
This is only a little bit worse than applications that have any kind of API service where you would have to communicate, like your application is going to communicate with a home server, because your device would give up its IP address and other network location information, which is not as accurate as the Wi-Fi MAC address method, but it's still, they would know approximately where you are.
Now, we always talk about how at least one story every week gets in there somehow, sneaks its way in, that has nothing to do with technology. But much like the Star Trek The Next Generation stories, we include
technology.
No, it's not.
No.
It's technology that doesn't really exist.
It's fluff.
It's this is included purely so that Krista can rant.
I didn't include this article, just FYI, but I did know about this book. This was actually announced months ago. I haven't picked it up yet. New J.R.R. Tolkien book, maybe his last. Actually, this is a compilation of stories he's already written, and they're in other places, like all in different books. But this is going to compile all of them in one place, so like you can see every version of the tale of the fall of Gondolin.
It may be his last. Do you think he will continue writing after this?
Well, it's Christopher Tolkien who's putting them together. Christopher Tolkien is how old is he?
93.
93. Yeah, I don't think.
Wow.
Bless his heart. He actually stepped down as the executor of his dad's estate recently. I think he's probably looking to retire and maybe coast the last couple of years. But
So you don't have this yet?
no, not yet.
When will you be picking this up?
Very soon, probably. I have some of the other more recent releases in this sort of group of compiled texts.
Now, we've recently learned that you are almost to diamond level in Overwatch.
Well, I did my placements, and I ranked higher than I typically do. So
if you're going to have to choose between devouring this book or, grinding your way to diamond, what are you going to do?
Well, I think I've probably read everything in this. I've already read some reviews of it, and it's stuff. It's compiled stories that have already exist. So I've already read it.
How silly of me!
And also, Idril is the hero of the story. Don't let any of the other tales about Tor or Glorfindel or anybody else. Idril's the hero. She saves the city.
Let us know if you disagree.
That's what you need to learn from that story.
That's your engagement challenge,
Idril's
I guess.
a strong female character. Everyone always wants to crap on him for not having strong female characters. Idril's a strong female character.
You think that was changed? Did they change that after the fact? Because
no, that's the way it is in every version of the story.
That's the hot new thing, is having a strong female character?
No, that's always been the case.
Do you think there's any chance that character's transgender?
No. She's married and has a son, so... Spoiler.
There were like 3 versions of this story, though, right?
Yeah, so like the earliest is from like very early, like 1900s. It was one of the first stories Tolkien ever wrote. And then he's revised it continuously throughout his life.
So this is like what was the first, I can't remember the first Harry Potter story before the one that she wrote, and then they published and it was just garbage.
I don't know.
Well,
I thought she just wrote Harry Potter.
You're going to have to be a little more specific.
With garbage.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of sad reading Harry Potter now as an adult, and it's like some of the magic kind of goes away when you realize
because it's not well written.
Yeah, everything. Well, I mean, it's engaging, but it's like you realize every one of their problems just gets solved with a new magical thing that only shows up at the last minute, and it kind of takes away from it a little.
Phrase for that. It's Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
That's like the trashiest of all literature.
Yeah.
Well, the trashiest of all social services is widely agreed to be Google+. It just didn't catch on, and you often see companies abandoning it because no one cares, but this maybe is the most embarrassing abandonment of Google+.
Google France has shut down its Google
Wait,
Plus
did
page.
you say Google France?
Yes.
So the company itself is fleeing its own social service?
In before the Level 1 Google Plus page has been shut down.
We don't have one. We don't have an Instagram either, which we should probably get an Instagram, but I mean...
But Facebook. Oh, Facebook.
We do have a Facebook. It doesn't get updated.
If we get an Instagram, then you're going to have to start doing some thought modeling for it. Because
No, that's Stacy's job. We hired Stacy for that.
I'm sorry.
Stacy's our brand influencer.
Well,
don't say that so loud.
She's only got one outfit. That's
well, yeah, I know.
Tough,
well, we're gonna have to take her. We're gonna take her on cruise ships. When do you have to take her on the flight to China next year?
My emotional support
We're
mannequin.
gonna take her to Costa Rica and get her under waterfalls.
Yeah,
in the surf.
At the tea farm in Taiwan. You have to have Stacy there modeling.
They would be so upset, but they would be quietly
this weird foreigner. What is he doing?
Yeah, it's like, well, he's American. I guess we can tolerate his idiocy.
But not Stacy's. Stacy has to keep a very straight profile.
If you took her to Thailand, they'd be like, we've got real. I mean, whatever you want. Real, it's cheaper. Well, Wendell, you are a man who I think you will agree has a bit of a problem being without data.
Yes.
You must consume data at all times. Now, here's the question. How much would you pay if there was no other alternative for 30 minutes of data?
If it had been a lot, like if I'd been out without data.
Here's the thing, right? You got arrested by an overzealous cop. Right? You've been in county for 3 weeks.
Wow.
With no technology at all.
Wow.
You get out, and you're only going to get data on this one plan. What is the maximum you would pay?
See, I was going to say a weekend camping trip with me or something like that.
Yeah. Well, in that scenario, if it had already been
weeks.
3 weeks, I would probably be like less inclined to care.
You think it would be like heroin, like you detox?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like say like a 2 to 3 day camping trip.
Okay, well let's
Like you go out into the hills of Eastern Kentucky.
The peak of the curve.
The peak of the curve is probably like $200. Like the worst case scenario, like my worst, I'm traveling like the worst curve would be like I'm traveling internationally. And I went offline before some critical thing was happening, and something went wrong at the airport, and I got stuck in customs, and they were like scanning my bags for like 5 hours, which has happened before. And then it's like, okay, I need to get on and make sure that everything is available, and nothing works, and I don't have a SIM card, and I can't find a machine, and there's one place that I can get on the internet for like a cafe or something. It'd probably be like $200.
But not $13,470.
No, God, no.
But maybe like if it was $13,469.
99.
Yeah, that'd be all right.
This story is frustratingly light on details, but this family was going to Vietnam. They've been there before. They think maybe their kid turned the phone on somehow, but the kid's like, no, I totally made sure it was in airplane mode.
Oh, I think that kid is totally full of shit.
Yeah, I would probably be freaking out.
I think the kid just forgot.
Well, Apple iPhones do have the thing where the Wi-Fi is never really off, even when it's in airplane mode. That's a thing.
So yeah, through 30 minutes of internet use on an airplane to Vietnam, they racked up nearly $14,000 in billing. They went to T-Mobile afterwards and they were like, "Are you crazy?" And T-Mobile was like, "You know what? Let's just call it $3,800." But then they went to this ABC 7 on your side, and 7 on your side did some investigative reporting. And when the hot lights of 7 on your side were shined on T-Mobile, they gave up and didn't charge them anything.
Well, and so the funny thing is that now Vietnam is actually in the international thing for T-Mobile, so like that, this would never happen anyway now. So I don't get it.
Well, on the topic of things that are cool but shouldn't exist, we have to cover the Bugatti Chiron made out of Legos.
It can go 20 kilometers an hour.
Oh my God. As compared to the real thing, which is the fastest production car ever made.
Like, what was it, 600 kilometers an hour?
It's fast. I don't know exactly what it is.
Gotta go fast.
That seems excessive.
They've got a nice little comparison picture down here. There's the real one. It's a good likeness, you have to admit. It's 1-to-1.
It was made by a builder. It was probably 18 plus.
It's 1 million Legos.
That's the age 18 to 99.
You think there are small parts not suitable for children under 3?
Yeah, I think so.
Now, I don't think those tires are made out of Legos.
No.
I doubt it.
And there's definitely various internal components that aren't. But the motors are the Technic motors.
Yeah, it has like hundreds of them. And 20 kilometers an hour is the speed that it can get up to, which is shocking.
This is kind of like, when people build redstone computers in Minecraft, where it's like, wow, that's really cool,
yeah.
but also, what are you doing with your life? Like,
And they also catalog, if you wanted to make your own, they catalog all the things that you will need. 2,304 power function motors,
wow.
4,000 gear wheels, 2,000 axles,
Don't send this to my boyfriend.
5.3 horsepower.
He loves Legos and he needs a new car.
I don't think they cataloged it. What do you think the cost was in Lego?
Oh,
Because those aren't cheap.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
If it's over 1 million components, that's going to be like a $10 million car. That's something crazy like that.
I don't think the Bugatti cost that much. That's probably like a $500,000 car.
It costs more than the car.
I mean, that's nothing.
The Lego is worth more than the actual
That's
car.
like just a weekend out for me.
Well, how many times have you you wanted to hydrate, right? You're desperately thirsty. But you looked at that water bottle and you were like, I don't have time to remove the lid. I've got things to do. I'm a busy executive. I know I feel that way constantly.
Yeah.
The good news is lid.
So this is a piece of technology. It's a water bottle that when you put it to your lips, it automatically opens and closes when you take it away from your lips. Why do we have this?
So you don't have to open a lid, right? That's what they're giving
Well,
you.
in Ryan's case, he had to hire an intern. And that guy works as his step stool and as his water bottle
Plus,
opener.
like, because he's the step stool, his hands are always dirty. So I got to send him to wash his hands. And then I got to use the spectrometer to make sure he really did. Then he opens and then he has to boil the lid and put it back on because his human filth might be, somewhere in there. So this is a huge invention. One thing they don't talk
save
about.
the Level 1 office a lot of money.
I'm really upset they did not talk about the cost of this thing. But it also has some sort of thermal properties to keep things hot and cold. It is motorized. So you got to wonder how long that's going to last.
I was going to say probably not very long. Probably can't put it in the dishwasher.
Comes in 13 and 17 ounces. So,
Two colors, looks like. There's red and white.
Well, where's the Kickstarter that has over $2 million of backers?
Yeah.
But that's the only thing missing from this story.
You also got to think, if this launches and if it's successful, how many of these are going to be stolen? Because that's an easy thing to steal.
We have a lot of mugs just sitting around in our
Immediately.
kitchen
Also,
downstairs.
here's a question. And there's probably going to be some manual button or something. But what if your coffee's cold and you're like, oh, let me just pour this out. Oh, wait.
I can't.
And you have to put your lips on it.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Cry.
How do you fill it?
You have to probably just take the lid off.
Yeah,
right?
there's probably a twist on it. It does ultimately have a lid.
So, that's the irony.
False advertising.
Well, I promised you there was no bad Tesla stories this
There's
week.
one.
There is
I
one.
read this one.
And this is
This one
just
a sad one.
you got after everything that has happened, how did he do this? How does his mind say, go ahead, Elon, double down, call him a pedophile again?
Well, I think we learned from the other story that it was some sort of mind-altering drugs.
You think he's on the acid?
I could
Or
see him doing something
Ambien,
like that, yeah.
Whatever.
So we remember the cave rescue, of course, and he
Best
made,
story of
made some
2018.
comments about that gentleman who ran that. So
And then he apologized.
He did, yeah. But people have been calling him out about doing that because it was an asshole thing to do. And then in future tweets, he's now saying, "Hey, why didn't that guy sue me? Maybe because it was true."
It's like, can you just don't pick a fight with a guy who's not just a national hero, but a global hero right now. Don't.
Well, the short memory. Most people have forgotten that entire episode at this point.
Really? Because that's been my favorite news story all year.
It will be when we get to the end of 2018 and they're doing
The real
story of the year.
Yeah.
That'll be a big one. That'll be rehashed.
I looked that up every morning before. I would read my email and get my coffee, and then I was like, got to learn more about that Thai rescue.
When is those kids' book tour?
I don't know. I'm surprised they are making a movie. I think already. They're already talking
they
about
talked
it.
about a movie. But those kids aren't going to see any of that money.
Yeah, which is sad.
So yeah, now the lawyer for that guy, he makes it sound like there is a lawsuit happening.
Wow.
And after this, he'd be crazy not to, right?
Yeah.
Unless there really is some pedophilia in this guy's past, which would be such a terrible, terrible, dark timeline if that gets uncovered. Imagine how unbearable Musk will be if we find out this guy's really a pedophile.
I think if I were ever Musk levels of wealthiness, that there, it's easy to imagine that I might have a couple of PIs that are just on staff all the time, just running background checks on all the people that I deal with on a daily basis. Just because you never know when you're dealing with a crazy person.
Well, you'd think, if you had as much money as Elon Musk, you'd have someone who's basically your handler keeping you from tweeting madness 24/7.
That too, probably.
Because that's what,
too.
honestly, I didn't really care about Elon Musk, but then you just read his Twitter and it just becomes more and more insufferable. And it's like, God, I like your companies, but I really don't like you. He's a very unlikable sort of person.
But what if that undercover PI, what if there is something to that? I mean, that'd be kind of nuts.
I don't know. I think that Thai guy is going to get a nice payout.
I would think so
that's
too.
probably true.
You think he'll buy a Tesla with it?
Although it's a lot more fun for me to imagine Elon Musk with 3 or 4 lieutenants that are like that Mike Ehrmantraut sort of personality. and just running around doing things for his bidding and reporting on those kind of things, doing the PI thing. That would be pretty fun.
Yeah, I would. But see, he's such a weak character. I would be afraid they would turn on me.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Get my secrets. Well, the Big Apple, right? Gotham, the city that never sleeps, the melting pot of America. It's a city that's known by many names, and this week it's known by one more.
I don't even want to say this.
Snapchat has apologized for calling it this.
Yeah, so they blamed, was it Open Maps or one of those map APIs?
Yeah.
But
Those open source nut jobs.
But somebody went back and looked and confirmed that other services did not pull this.
Just Snapchat.
It was just Snap. So yeah.
Oh, Lord. What a bizarre story.
This reeks a little bit of 4chan, but
So somebody in the comments of the story, I don't know if this is true, but it sounds probably realistic that the Jewish population of New York is right at 13%. So doesn't really deserve the name, does it?
no.
No.
As we all sit there, no. like we're responsible, like we're in trouble.
Is Snapchat going to also do some community service? I feel like they need to do more than just apologize. They're going to have to like put on a parade or something, or sponsor a community event, or I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre bug if it is. There
were two map providers involved here, and it seems like maybe the one in the middle might have been the one that got hit. So, but you should have probably some checks and balances.
Well, and also like New York City, that's like huge area to be searching, so you'd think that would have come up a little sooner.
Sometimes vandalizing Wikipedia produces results like this, because like Siri and a lot of other things use Wikipedia as their source of knowledge.
Who was it that they reported was dead? Was it Shatner?
Yeah, somebody.
That happens pretty frequently with celebrities.
And it was just somebody vandalized his...
I think it was Siri that picked up whoever it was, and Siri was like, "Oh, they're dead. Let me be the first to report it."
Good job. Artificial intelligence has no idea what's going on.
Siri's just searching for a story, you know?
She's the worst kind of reporter.
I love that word, and it's so mean-spirited, but it's so funny.
I don't even understand it. Like
it means that hoe over there.
But I know that. But what does that mean?
Like, why is
that an insult?
Or why that one over there? Why not this one over here? Or the one to the left? Or the one...
Why does she always have to be over there?
I don't know. You know, listen.
Maybe
it's just a new hot name.
Maybe the comments can teach us about why that hoe is over there and why that's a bad thing.
We're so old.
But I do enjoy it. It is funny.
It is funny.
And the fact that you can replace the word thought with that and come up with all of these, like thought police.
Deep thoughts.
It's the thought
Intrusive
that counts.
Thoughts. Yeah.
Okay, that's it for the Level 1 news.
That's great. If you have an attractive young woman who does the accounting at your company, work It's the Thought That Counts into something. That'll be funny. You'll probably get fired, but it'll be worth it. All right. That's it for us.